Well, welcome. So today we have an amazing CEO, Nathan Adams, who runs Red Tea Homes. And so Nathan, I'm going to let you go in, just give us a little bit of your background as CEO, running the business, how you got started, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. One thing I say to people a lot is when you go to school, grade school, high school, college, nobody ever teaches you how to be a CEO. You just wind up in that seat one day and you start to, in your words, FSO. I don't know if I can describe what that is, but I think most of you are pretty intelligent.
Figure stuff out. We like to figure stuff out.
Yeah, you'll figure stuff out. So I really got my start in real estate when I bought my first house. I was in the hospitality industry and working in a sales capacity. And I bought my first home. I fixed it up myself. I sold it a year and a day later. And I started to look at what I made off of the renovation, look at what I paid the real estate agents that were involved. And light bulbs started going off for me. And I decided, you know what, I really want to get into real estate. And traveled for 6 months. I landed in Denver and I jumped in working for somebody else, stayed at that job for about 9 months. And then from there, I started my own company being just me. And I had no idea what it was going to become. But here I am today with 40 employees. It's not uncommon for me to look in the mirror and wonder, why do all of these people follow my lead? Why are they paying attention to me? Because they don't always see the side of me that outside of the office that maybe is a little less mature than the one inside of the office.
I love it. So, the reason why I invited you to the show, because it's been so interesting. I've known you about 4 years, and this transformation that you have been on. So you've been, I would call it, a very successful developer in the city of Denver. You've taken the right risk generally, and they've generally worked out. So why this change to build a greener Colorado? I mean, you are on this mission, and I have seen something inside you that I don't see inside most people.
Yeah, so I would go back in time, and it kind of ties into how you and I know each other. I got to a point where I thought, you know what, I need to get better at what I do, and I need to, seek out help or a group or somebody that can coach me up. So I ended up joining an organization called 12 Mavens, and it was nothing but CEOs, business owners, presidents of companies. And I was a sponge. I went there every single month. It was a 5 or 6 hour ordeal. And the person that led it when I first started was so at it, but I didn't know any better. And I was learning and I was growing and I was getting better. And I attended, you'll have to help me out with the name, Dwight Cooper. Is that the last name?
Dwight Cooper.
Yeah. So I attended this event and Dwight spoke about best places to work and how he had gotten his company there. And that was in December, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I left there pretty inspired, wanting to be a best places to work as well. And when we started on that mission, I thought it was really all about like the benefits, and we've got to give more vacation time and more pay and medical and dental, and just kept like giving and giving and giving, and really wasn't making any headway. And then really finally started to figure out that that wasn't really what it was all about. It was more about the purpose of our company and the mission and really needing to listen to employees. So building a greener Colorado was not my idea, although I love the idea. That idea came from my employees. All I had to do was listen. And if I hadn't gone out and sought that training, that coaching to really be better as a CEO, I probably wouldn't have been capable of listening to the phenomenal idea that was in front of me. And I've always loved what I do. But now when I walk in the door of the office, we've got 40 people that are all heading in the same direction, all really excited about what we're doing. And that feels way better to me. It's more fun for me to come to work now than it ever has been before.
It is so interesting when you can get that North Star out there, right? And, we talk a lot about this. I spoke about it last week when I broke down the business acceleration model. The foundation of every business starts with vision and values, because if you're going to go on a journey, you have to know the road you're taking, and you have to know the guardrails that are the rules of the game. What do we celebrate? What we don't tolerate? And so if you don't have some type of compelling North Star, whether you call it a mission, a vision, a big, fat, hairy, audacious goal, it doesn't matter. It's the way in which we organize for each other to say, this is the journey, this is the mission that we're on. And so, you run a fully integrated real estate company, from acquisition of land to entitlement to architecture. I mean, it's complex to understand what it is that you do. Even, I don't know, maybe a year into working with you, I didn't know what you did fully, right? And we had this conversation. But when you say building a greener Colorado, and it was interesting, watching people's heads on the screen, people nod, people identify with like, yes, that's something cool. That's something I can identify with. So tell me about how that's impacted the company.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I don't remember when exactly we decided last year, but it was probably sometime around summer. And that wasn't fully the decision. That was just the decision to do the research to figure out if it was a good idea. So we put several months worth of time into researching this and, understanding what the risks might look like. And, some of those risks were we were afraid maybe we might lose clients. We got to a point where we decided, you know what, if we lose clients, if our business drops for a short period of time, we know definitively that we're making the right decision and this will work out in the end. And we made the decision. We drew a line in the sand January 1st, 2022. We wouldn't build it. We wouldn't buy the land. We wouldn't build it. We wouldn't sell it. Even if another developer buys the land and builds it and comes to us and says, your sales team's amazing, we want you to sell for us. If they're not building it to a LEED Gold certification or higher, we'll simply pass on that business. And as a business owner, that's a really weird thing to say, because my first 15 or 16 years in business was hustling for every bit of business that we could possibly get. And here we are now saying no to some business.
I've said this before. I've made more money in my career saying no than I have saying yes. And knowing exactly who you are and what your unique value is to the community, to yourself, is way easier, way more aligned, way more energizing than it is just being a peddler of stuff where you can be easily displaced by someone else. And I think that's kind of where you're starting to get your company to. You're starting to see the momentum start for building a greener Colorado. Tell me some of the outputs. You've started to evangelize this problem on social media, talking about the pricing. I mean, I don't know how anyone affords to live in Denver. I mean, average home out there is like 750 grand. And so I'd probably have to have like 3 jobs to afford a house out there. And, but, walk me through what are some of the outputs of doing that? I mean, I know you're energized, but what's it meant for like hiring? What's it meant for, you use investment capital?
Yeah. So one thing when you're in real estate, especially on the development side of things, a lot of people perceive real estate developers as this like unlimited source of capital, and they can fund anything that they want. But the reality is almost every single developer is raising equity on projects that they do. That was a limiting factor for us for a long, long time. It was hard to raise money. Sometimes it's hard to pick up the phone and ask a friend or a family member, hey, could you invest with us? We've totally flipped the script on that. And what I mean by that is we now have people that are just seeing what we do online on social media, seeing the website, hearing us talk about it. And they come to us and say, hey, do you take investor capital? Is there a way for me to get involved? And I'll tell you, that conversation's amazing. It's a hell of a lot easier than the one where you're picking up the phone going, God, I hope they don't like hang up on me, or I hope I don't ruin a friendship here.
And that's just your mother.
She's one of my biggest critics too, by the way. She's definitely paying attention and making sure I do the right thing. But you also mentioned hiring. It's made it a lot easier to hire. We've had people that have reached out to us and said, I really love what you're doing. It really aligns with who I am as a person. What jobs do you have open? Is there a way that I can come and potentially work with you? I've got a lunch set next week with a woman that was a developer in North Carolina. She did everything. She's qualified to do my job. And she was building LEED products back in 2003. She taught the city of Wilmington, how to approve these projects and, how to handle it from the city side. And here she is coming to us and seeking out a job saying, your values really align with what I do. I live in Denver now. I don't want to build a company all over again, but I'd love to bring my knowledge and help your company. So the first job that we had open, we couldn't quite pay enough money, but we've decided to sit down, have lunch next week, and we've got some other openings or opening jobs that will be open soon. And I think we'll be able to make a fit there. So having things like that happen where you have people that are, in your words, Jerry, tens showing up at the doorstep wanting a job, that's really, really amazing.
And I think, as we look at the great resignation and things that we've learned, I mean, more than 4 million people every month since last July, and the stat just came out for the last month, another 4 million people voluntarily left their jobs. And why are they doing it? Because we already knew from a million different surveys, 2/3 of people didn't really like their job. And that's a piece of why I'm trying to positively impact 5 million people in the next 5 years through better business, because I couldn't imagine showing up to my home every day not liking what I did during the day. And what we saw was people had the white space to think about, what am I doing? What's my purpose? And what I do, does it matter, right? And I think a lot of people are retrenching and doubling down to say, it's not about the money. It's great. I mean, it's great right now if you're on the employee side, because the labor shortage, you can name your price out there. But there are a lot of people who are coming in and saying, it's more important to me to have a purpose-driven position where I'm making an impact that's aligned with my values. And if you're not putting that stake in the ground as a company, boy, are you missing the mark for finding really talented, driven people who are consciously intentional about the work that they want to go do. And you find that alignment, and man, you can do anything. You can do anything. It doesn't matter what real estate, it just doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah, one of our last 2 hires took a 40% pay cut to come work for us.
Right. And I think people scratch their heads about that. But what is the price of your happiness? What is the price of going home and being miserable, looking at your spouse, saying, yeah, man, it was really hard. My boss the work I do isn't very inspiring. I don't have clarity in how I contribute to the organization. It's not a whole lot of fun. And so I think it's super cool what it is that you're doing. Tell me about COVID, right? One of the things, COVID, we were not laughing. It's not a funny matter, but, I think we're starting to get to the other side of COVID. I know Rachel was at a conference in DC, a healthcare conference, where you needed a vaccine card and a mask. And within the last 48 hours, they said you don't have to show your vaccine card, and no one was wearing masks. And so I think in the junior year of COVID, I think people are starting to get to the other side of this, but it has certainly impacted businesses. Can you tell me about, when you went home the first day when the world shut down, what you were thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't love that day, but it's kind of like 9/11. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget kind of what happened and what the day was like. I went home and I remember walking in. So I pull into the garage, I walk into my house. I don't want to talk to my wife or my kids. I walk upstairs, I go to the master bathroom, and I'm literally standing in front of the mirror talking to myself. And I'm saying, today's the day you lost your business and you didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't your fault. And I don't talk to myself in the mirror. That's not normal. And I'm having a conversation with myself. And I'll never forget that, because I legitimately believed that we were done. And then the next morning I woke up and like within seconds of waking up, I was fired up. I was angry. I'm like, there's no chance in hell this is bringing me down. I got on the phone with our CFO. I'm like, what can we refinance? What can we sell? What are our options? We're not laying anybody off. We're going to make it to the other side of this thing. And fortunately, we were successful and we didn't lay anybody off. The worst thing that happened was we asked a couple of people to take some vacation days while we were slow. And outside of that, nobody lost their job at our company. And to this day, I feel really good about that.
Was it really as simple as like sleeping and waking up the next morning and saying, screw this, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to let this negatively impact the business. I mean, I've seen people with their backs up against the wall. What is it that you did? What did you channel? What's the secret? How did you do that? Because there's a lot of people that would have cowered and said, the world's against me. I can't do it. What were those things that you did other than, calling your CFO?
So I think some people are just wired that they don't accept failure. I didn't know that I was wired that way until somewhere around 10 years ago. I was meeting with a financial planner. It was my wife and I, and he was putting us through a series of questions. And he kept pressing for like, what if your business isn't successful? What's your plan B look like? And I just continuously answered, that's not on the table. That's not an option. We're not having that conversation. I'm not failing. And after like 10 or 15 minutes of impressing me, he's like, you refuse to acknowledge a plan B. And I'm like, there isn't one. There, like, failure is not an option. So it was that day that I realized that I just think about things differently. And you're right. It's not as simple as I woke up angry and then just magically solved everything. But when you get really, really focused on a problem and you have good resources around you, which thankfully I did, you're able to figure things out.
I think that's really interesting about, the quality of people, making sure that you have them around you. Rachel and I talk about this a lot, that you are the makeup of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you better be really intentional about who you're spending your time with. And we try and do that because, I've said this a million times, you don't do life alone. It's principle 7 of the book. We all stand on the shoulders of giants. And so if you think you're self-made, it's not the case. How did you handle navigating COVID in Colorado, which is a little bit tighter in restrictions compared to Florida here, where COVID happened for about 37 seconds, and then we decided it was over. How did it impact your ability to run the business?
It made it more difficult. Going into COVID, we were toying with we were experimenting with work from home and had people working from home, 1 or 2 days a week, and just kind of seeing how that worked out. A lot of our staff was really motivated to work from home. And I get it, you don't have to comb your hair, put your makeup on, you don't have to drive to the office. You definitely save some time. But going into COVID, I think a lot of people in our office wanted to work from home, more because our culture wasn't great. I think that was really the driving force. And miraculously, through COVID, some intentionality to this as well, through COVID, our culture got better. And as our culture got better, and COVID's not necessarily over unless you're in Florida, but as we went back to work, and then we went back at just telling people you had to work from home 50% of the time, so that we kept just 50% staff in the office to keep people spread out and keep things a little safer. We started to realize that people started to push back against us, and they didn't want to work from home 2 or 3 days a week. And now, gosh, on any given day, we probably have no more than 1 to 3 people out of 40 people working from home. Our culture has gotten substantially better, and people want to be in the office because the vibe is good, the energy is good. It's a fun place to be.
How did you do that during COVID? Because almost every business that I know suffered during COVID. We're not in person. We're not interacting the way we normally are. We're in 2D screens. And so you don't bump into someone in the hallway and you're asking, hey, Nate, how was volleyball this weekend? How did you do? And so everything becomes more intentional, which feels a little bit more forced. What is it that you were doing differently where your culture improved in the toughest time that we've ever lived through?
So I would say that's like, I don't know, somewhere near or just after the start of COVID was the time that light bulbs were going off for us, that it wasn't just about giving people more benefits, that we had to really start to listen to our employees and find out what it was that they wanted. And it's kind of sort of starting to evolve into this building a greener Colorado. We didn't know it was that at the time, but our biggest equity partner, gosh, not long after COVID started, we were having a conversation and selling out of a deal. In fact, the deal didn't go through because of COVID. We still own a parking lot in downtown Denver with our equity partner. But he was asking me on a call, what are you going to do with the money? And I said, we're going to make a pivot. We're not going to build multifamily anymore. We're going to build smaller, attainably priced homes. I don't remember whether or not we said that we were going to build them to a LEED Gold certification. I don't remember if that was an idea yet. It may have been. But as we started to make that shift and be intentional about delivering housing that the majority of the people in our office need, most of our people are in their 20s and 30s, And then that evolved into building it sustainably. We really caught the attention of a lot of our employees who then got excited, and it was more of a purpose to come to work, and they felt great about what we were doing, and they were being listened to and they were being heard. We had a good company before that. It just wasn't a great company. And as we made those changes and those shifts, it just really changed the attitude of the people. And if, I don't know, let's say at the time, I think going into COVID, we were probably a 20-person company. We've doubled in size since then. If you have 5 or 6 people around the office that are starting to get excited, and you could see it and how they talk and how they hold themselves, it's infectious and other people catch on. And when you have a whole bunch of people running around excited by what they do and happy to be at the office, it just snowballs from there.
There's a tipping point. I say this all the time, toxicity is contagious, but so is enthusiasm. And so what do you choose? How are you going to impose your will? How are you going to show up for your people? You have to be intentional about that, because when people don't know what to expect from you, man, it sucks in that environment to not know what you're going to get from people. One question from Carol Ann Sharp. She said, have you had managers that didn't want to embrace work from home, and how did you handle that?
Oh gosh. So managers underneath me, I assume, is the way that question is being asked. Yep. I see the head
Yes.
nod.
Yep.
Perfect. I don't think we had anybody that didn't embrace it because it wasn't an option. At least during COVID, it was not an option. It was literally, we had to have half the people working from home. So I don't remember anybody not embracing it. Now, when we first toyed with the idea and kind of the experimental phase, which was before COVID started, I was probably the biggest person that was against it. I felt it would be harmful to culture. I, to a certain degree, was not trusting that we were going to get a full workday out of people that were working from home. And part of me being a little bit jaded, my hobby in my free time is I play sand volleyball. There's been many times where I've been able to get out of the office at 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm playing with friends that are leaving their laptop on beside the court, and between games, they got to move the mouse around so they can pretend like they're working. So when I see that stuff out of my own friends, it naturally gives me pause to say, hey, let's have my employees just all have a free for all and work from wherever they want. But we've made a gigantic shift as a company. We're not really concerned with where people work from. We've adopted an unlimited vacation policy. The mantra here is you're an adult, make your own decisions, just get your work done.
That's awesome.
Good point. Yeah.
I think it has taken some convincing of my senior executives that work from home for everyone should be accessible, or at least a hybrid work schedule, right? Because we're ultimately losing people because they want to work hybrid or they want to work fully remote, which had never been an option in our company up till 2 weeks ago for hourly employees. So we did make that change, but some folks are still hesitant to make that change with their employees. So
I'll add one thing for you, Carol, because this might be relevant. When we first did it, it was a one size fits all. Everybody gets to work from home 1 day a week. And then we moved it to 2 days a week. And that was an awful way to do it, because not every job function at our office is equal and not everybody's performance is equal. So our policy now is if you're performing and getting your work done, we don't care how many days. We have some people whose job function is such that they simply can't work from home. So it's not on the table for those folks. We have other people, one of which I see on this call, that just despises working from home. Thanks, Lisa. Lisa's also our longest employee and my right hand and my left hand. So she's an absolute rock star. So a little shout out to you, Lisa. So it's not a one size fits all program.
yeah, and that's kind of what we've adopted as well is, it's not a one size fits all. Obviously your performance has to be, at or above, the acceptable level for you to get the option, if that makes sense. And I have folks too that absolutely refuse to say, I'm going to work from home because they don't like it, right? They like coming into the office. They like going down the hallway to see each other. And I'm kind of one of those people too. So I can't say anything. So I like being in the office. I mean, maybe a couple of days a week is okay, but I really like being in the office and that feeling. So
Interaction. I see this really clearly. I have some really definitive thinking on this one. I see this much like the record industry when digital music was starting to come out and LimeWire was letting music get ripped off. This is coming. This digital world that we are in, there are going to be way more digital tools that are going to connect us better. We are going to have to get clearer on the expected outputs, right? Because why do we put people in seats for 40 hours? Because we're not 100% clear of what we need them to do to make it make sense for us to employ them, right? So every employee has to have an ROI inside the company, or else we don't have a company, we have a bankrupt company. We're going to get clearer and clearer on that because the technology tools are going to see the inputs and the production for each person in the organization. And when you open up, I don't have to just hire in Denver. I now have a worldwide pool that I can choose from. And, I think about my assistant, Maria Annika, who's on the call. She's in the Philippines. Right? It is 4 o'clock in the morning right now. She time shifts to the US so that we can work together. And she's an incredible assistant. So just like Lisa has been a right hand to you, but dollar cost, she is significantly less than if I was paying someone here in the US. And yet I can pay Maria a wage that works in her country that she's happy with and rewards her for the work that she's doing. We gave her a bonus today because she's doing great work. And so I think it just opens up your mind to what is possible and what my labor pool looks like, going forward. And if you do not embrace remote work, you are going to be the dinosaur that's being left in the back. Because I've not bought a CD in the last 20 years, and the record industry is just fine. But that's what they were trying to protect, records and CDs. And that is not the case. And so I think we need to be forward thinking in this whole notion of to Carol Ann's point, and Nathan, maybe to your point at 45, right? You were an analog first. Whereas some of these people on the call, probably Yannicka and Courtney and AJ, they're digital first. They're used to this is a face-to-face conversation, as opposed to, I would say this is a video call, right? Because this is not face-to-face. We are not together. And yet the world is changing. And it's, the old white dinosaur that has to evolve with it, not the other way around. And so the faster you are to embrace how change is happening, I think the better your company is going to be.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Tell me about what you're doing to hire the right people, because, you used a word earlier about remote work prior to COVID. And it was that we necessarily didn't have high trust in organizations, and that we need to have tens. There's no reason that you shouldn't have tens in organizations. You shouldn't let people be 6s and 7s and 8s because they're harder to manage. There's more hand-holding, all of those things. What are you doing in a really tight labor market? We're back down to 3.9% unemployment. It's pre-COVID rates. What is it that you're doing that's different to try and attract these people beyond building a greener Colorado?
Yeah. It's good that you said beyond that, because that is attracting people, and, being out there on social media, putting our values and our mission out there is huge. But the other thing that we adopted a couple of months ago, that's working, although it's kind of moving at a slow pace, but we've had some success with already, is we believe of the, call it 3.9% people that are unemployed, there's some rock stars in there, but the majority of them are unemployed for a reason. And they're probably not our best candidates. Our best candidates are at a company. They've been at the same company for 3 years, 5 years or more. And they may or may not be happy. They just may or may not be motivated to look for another job. But when we go and we find them and we can see their resume on LinkedIn, because that's pretty much what LinkedIn is if it's updated properly, we then go and we proactively invite them to apply. We send them a video. It's me for a minute and 15 seconds talking and saying, look, we want only the best and brightest to work here. We don't have much interest in waiting for people to apply. We've intentionally sought you out because we believe that you are one of the best and the brightest. And we'd love to see you check us out online. Go to our website, go to our social media pages. And if you like what you see, please fill out an application. We'd love to meet with you.
I think you all, in today's day and age, if you're not acting like your own recruiting firm, then you're missing the mark, right? So recruiting companies make tons of money making placements. On average, it's 20% of the yearly salary that they're placing the candidate for. And so there's no reason that you shouldn't be doing that for yourself. Go out, continue to build relationships. One of the things that we've talked about before, we had Dave Gerhardt come and speak at our leadership summit. I think you're doing a good job of this, is building a founder brand. What is the problem that you solve? What's your unique view on it? And you have to evangelize that. And I think you're doing a really good job of that. Thumbs up.
Yep.
Nate, tell me a little bit about, high achievers. There's all high achievers on this call at the end of the day, right? So tell me what your normal day looks like. I know volleyball is a key component of your life and a passion of yours, but how do you control your day to make sure that your inputs create the outputs that you need?
So you want me to give you what a typical day looks like?
Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
Gosh, you've inspired me a little bit. I think you might actually wake up a little bit earlier than me, but I'm somewhere between 4:30 and 5 o'clock almost every single morning.
So you sleep in?
Sleep in compared to you, yes. So part of the reason I get up so early is I'm fortunate to, at 45 years old, be at least okay at sand volleyball. And I've got some friends, some of them that are playing professionally, and they train from 6 to 8 a.m. Most days during the week. So I hop in on that. So I'm up at 4:30, 4:45. I usually take 10 or 15 minutes to just look at my inbox, answer some emails, and eat a pretty good meal. I think that getting enough sleep and having a good diet are mission critical to being successful and to feeling good. And then I jump in the car and I get my 2 hours of exercise and fun in, take a quick shower, and depending on the day, I may be in the office and maybe off to a meeting, but generally work a fairly full day. I'm, I guess, a little bit abnormal in that, call it September through May, I'm probably working 80-ish hours a week so that I can be more like a 40-hour work week kind of through the summer. So I hustle pretty hard this time of year, but I'm already seeing the light at the end of the tunnel as it's light out past 6 p.m. now. I know daylight savings time is going to kick in here any day now, and trying to accomplish kind of all the big projects during the cold months in Denver.
Yeah. I think it's really important to, just like you have a mission for your company to build a greener Colorado, we have to have the same thing for our own personal life, right? It has to be your life on your terms, or else you're going to start resenting the work that you're doing, right? Especially when you're grinding during the winter time and it's dark and it's super early. Do you try and keep the same structure in your day, or is it varied just depending on the day?
It's varied, but there are a lot of consistencies from week to week, not so much day to day. There's certain meetings that happen on Monday that happen every Monday. I think I've got 4 or 5 people that report to me, and I have the same weekly check-in times with all of them. So Lisa, who's on this call, I know 1:30 every Monday. She and I are going to sit down and talk for 30 minutes. So there's a lot of consistency through the week, but not so much from day to day. And then one thing that I've really learned from you that is invaluable, and I look 2 weeks out and book white space into my calendar, because when I run meeting after meeting, just back to back throughout the day, and then it's 5 or 6 o'clock at night, I'm looking at hundreds of emails in my inbox and who knows how many missed phone calls. Plus I've got messages on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, GroupMe, Asana, Slack. It's just like, there's more inboxes than I know what to do with. Having an hour or 2, sometimes even twice a day, just makes the day so much easier and so much less stressful.
Yeah, I think that's a critical point. I always coach all the high achievers that I work with to build in intentional calendar invites with yourself so that no one can steal that time. And it's to do the thinking of the business. It's white space. Just think about, what am I doing? How can I do it better? Am I doing the right thing? And then the other piece is, the calendar control. I call it 15 forward. Take 15 minutes every Sunday, look 15 days into your calendar and be ruthless about what are your objectives, what is supporting your objectives and what is no longer relevant, and disinvite yourself from meetings that you no longer need to be a part of, because your time is your scarcest resource. And so you have to be super diligent about controlling your calendar. It's the most important thing. One of my earliest mentors always said to me, either you control your day or your day controls you. And so
one other thing that's great about building that white space out too, Jerry, if somebody hits me up and it's a meeting that I absolutely need to take, or a call that I really feel like I need to be on, having that white space is incredible, because I'm not looking at a packed calendar going, I can't move that. I can't move that. I can just eat into the white space for 30 minutes. And I don't make it a habit, and I'll never eat into an entire 2-hour block unless it's really, really important. But having that also gives me some flexibility as well.
Yeah. I always find it interesting, looking at high achievers calendars, how packed it is from top to bottom, how planned. And so you need to have that space to do the doing. Like, we have all these meetings, but you need to do the doing. And so you need space to do that. Super critical. Nathan, what's one thing that you do every day that you think every leader should do?
Oh gosh. One thing that I do every day that every leader should do: get an adequate amount of sleep and eat properly. I mean, I see people in my life, whether it's employees, coworkers, contractors we work with, and I see, sometimes not in the best physical shape, with a 40-ounce big gulp in their hand, just sucking down soda at a rapid pace. And I watch those people, they ask me the same question. They all ask me the same question. How do you get done what you get done in a day? How do you keep up? How come you have so much energy? And I just look and just go, just change your diet and get enough sleep. Like, it's not that hard.
Foundational principle of life is diet, exercise, and sleep. You get that right, and you have a different chance of success. Like, I know my energy isn't 100% right now because I'm not working out the way that I should. Everyone says it's COVID-19. I proved them wrong. It's COVID-20. I've gained 20 pounds during COVID. And so I have some work to do, but I know for me, that's the keystone habit, which is exercise. And it's just when I'm doing that, everything else falls into place. I eat more mindfully, I sleep more soundly, and it just is a foundational element for sure. What's something you've eliminated that's really helped drive meaningful results for you?
Gosh, something I've eliminated: sticking to the eating and sleeping right. I try and drink no more than once a week. And, certainly there's weeks. Vacation, I'm probably drinking from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep and having a good old time. But when I'm in my day-to-day life, I try and limit it to just one day a week. And then that one day that I do it, I usually wake up and feel like crap the next day. And the last thing I want to do is turn on my laptop and do work.
I would say, who doesn't care what you did last night? Your kids, because they always get up at the same time and they make you, come on, let's go. Time to go.
Yep. And when they're really young, changing a diaper hungover is not fun.
Hey, Nathan, question again from Pure Land. How receptive have prospective employees been from the video messaging tactic about trying to attract those people, being proactive and bringing them into the business and inviting them?
Yeah, it's interesting. It varies by job function. So we have construction. We really haven't gotten that message to resonate with superintendents, people that are on the job site working. But then you take the architecture side of our business and we have amazing success, and it resonates really well there. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think part of the reason that architecture it really resonates with is twofold. One, they're in front of a computer all day, every day. So they're paying attention more so than a construction superintendent would. And then the second part of that is when you talk to a superintendent and say, we're going to build to a LEED Gold certification, I think what runs through their mind is, oh, you just made my job harder. This house is going to be harder to build. And then you put that through an architect's brain and they go, wow, this is really cool. These are the things I learned about in school that a whole bunch of other architecture firms really aren't doing. And it resonates more with them.
Let's talk about leading your people, right? I think in my experience, you're a pretty extraordinary leader. You talked about pre-COVID being at 20-ish, and now you're at 40 something. You're in the process of building. How many light homes are you in the process of building right now?
Gosh, so I'll give you a couple of answers. Under construction, we have 28 right now, and that's a pretty low number. And I'm not a very big fan of the local municipalities and the speed at which they're approving projects. But our architecture team has north of 350 in design right now. So I fast forward to, April, May-ish, we'll add another 53 under construction. We get out towards mid to late summer, we'll add another 67 just in one project. And I think another couple of smaller projects that are in the 10 to 15 unit range. By the end of the year, we'll have probably close to about 150 under construction. And in 2023, our in-house construction team will build about 200. Our sales team will sell about 400. We have 4 main clients that we sell their product for. And kind of going back to when we talked about, making the decision to build a greener Colorado, we feared we may lose some clients. We have 4 clients that have absolutely embraced it. We've been very intentional about lowering the number of developers that we sell for. And those 4 clients were all over it, absolutely loved it. One of them even pivoted like midway through design on a 29 unit project. He said, let's go ahead and just take this thing to LEED Gold certified. So when we drew that line in the sand for January 1st, anything that was already making its way through the process, we're not going to fire clients because they're not going to shift midway through. But it was amazing. We got a guy that was in his 60s to just make that shift. And I feel like, how much you care about the environment does have a little something to do with how old you are. I think the younger you are, the more you care. The older you are, it doesn't mean that you don't care, but maybe it's just not on radar for you as much as it would be if you're in your 20s or 30s.
Awareness, for sure. So one of the things that I see in companies, at your head count is communication becomes a bit of an issue in a high growth company, right? So you doubled in headcount, you have a lot of stuff, you'll probably double again in headcount over a period of time. How are you handling communication? How are you doing that differently? Because I'm sure it used to be, back in the day, you'd yell over to Lisa and, Lisa, go do this. And now there's 40 people that we have to communicate that through. And some of them are in the office, some of them are out in the field. What communication changes have you made inside the organization?
First, I got a doorbell to get a hold of Lisa. I just press this button and I can catch Lisa that way. So, but that's more a joke. There's 2 main things, one that we've done and one that we're about to do. The first thing that we've done is we've adopted Asana as our project management tool, and almost all of our communication runs through there. It's great because when all the information lives there, for those of us, especially myself, that might be working at 4:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, I don't have to call somebody and say, hey, what do you know about this project? Or where's this file located? It's all in one spot. And then we've outgrown our current office. So we close on a new building in a month. And we have designed the inside of that to flow where the departments that need to speak to one another are next to one another. So we almost set the office up in like a big horseshoe, for lack of a better word, or maybe even a circle. And everything will start with acquisitions. We've got to find the land before we do anything else. So acquisitions is here. And then development services that handles entitlements is right next to them. And then architecture is right next to them, which is right next to construction. And it just flows so that we've got the people that need to collaborate sitting really close to one another. So that combined with Asana really has elevated our communication.
I think another thing that you do that's unique is coming out of your weekly leadership meeting. And I saw Lisa do this. Tell people what you do coming out of the leadership meeting to try and bind the company together.
Yeah, it's great. So we talk about things in there that maybe we shouldn't talk about throughout the rest of the office, but 80% of what we do is, planning, how are we a better place to work? How are we going to meet our goals? What's coming next? What do we need to be concerned about? And there's 6 of us in that meeting. That'll grow to probably closer to 8 to 10 by the end of the year. And what we do is we basically rotate. Each person takes a turn. We film a video that's somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes that then gets circulated to the entire office. So they know what were we doing behind those closed doors? What were we talking about? What are we planning for? And that's another level of communication that really keeps everybody kind of tightly knit and on the same page.
I think it's a brilliant move because it starts to break down those barriers of like, what are those people doing that make the decisions that impact me? It's like, okay, let's just bring everyone into the inner circle and let's just have a conversation about what it is that we're doing. What are you doing to develop yourself? What are the things that you're doing as a high achiever, as a leader, to make sure that you are continuing to level up and be part of your, the best part of your game?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm involved with your organization. I'm in a weekly office hours meeting, which is great. I definitely learned some stuff there. Was in Jacksonville, Florida, I think all of a month ago, if that. Spent a good part of my weekend learning, getting better, constantly reading business books. And when I say reading, it's really listening to. So I spend a decent amount of time in the car, and it's not a whole lot of music that's being played. I'm listening to books. I'm trying to learn things. I'm angling to get better at what I do so that I can be better for my people. There's probably more to it than that, but those are the ones that are top of mind.
What are you working on right now? What skill are you developing?
What skill am I developing? I'm trying to jump higher for beach volleyball. It's not easy at 45. Skill that I'm developing, gosh, not a specific skill per se, but I'm reading a book or listening to a book called Principles by Ray Dalio.
Oh, yeah.
There was another book that I listened to, and maybe 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Is that Ray Dalio? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Dalio's Principles, 5 Dysfunctions is another famous author, and I can't.
So I listened to something that was Ray Dalio. I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, and it was phenomenal. And oddly enough, one of my employees turned me onto this. She actually brought me the book. And I said, please give this to somebody else. There's no chance I'm going to read it, but I promise you I will download it on Audible and I will listen to it. So I'm about, maybe a third of the way through it, and it's been great so far. And I just listen to it when I'm driving.
Ray Dalio, super famous hedge fund guy. Matt Kleinrock, who you know and you met, he is a super fan of the Principles book. I love that. Nathan, as you look out on building a greener Colorado, any downfalls that you see out there? Anything that gives you any trepidation to make that move as you thought about it, or things that could come down the road?
Yeah, there's some things that aren't easy. Some of the materials that we need. So when we build a greener Colorado, we don't put in a traditional gas-fired furnace. And I know those of you in Florida may not know what a furnace is, although Jacksonville does get cold at times. We put in mini splits, and that heats and cools the home. The last 6 homes that we delivered, we bought and paid for mini splits in July to receive them in August, and we got them in December. So it's things like that are a little scary because they're mid-construction. There really isn't much of a pivot there. So stuff like that's a little scary, a little funky. We ran into a situation recently where we came across a building, and part of our business, and we've done this for a long time, is we'll take and buy a multifamily project that isn't condo or apartment style. So no units above or below one another. They're just spread out in a row. And we'll buy them, renovate them, and then basically split the parcels off and sell them individually. So we ran into a scenario that we kind of struggled with. What would we do with it? And that scenario was, we found a building. It was a great deal. It fit all of the economics, but the previous 2 owners ago, less than 5 years ago, was an HVAC contractor, HVAC. And he put in all new furnaces and all new water heaters, gas fired, not in line with what we would do. And, there's a situation where we say building a greener Colorado, we didn't know what the heck to do with this thing. It's a remodel. And, the long story short, the conclusion that we came up with is tearing that thing down and building new, or tearing out all of those furnaces and water heaters that were in decent condition. And they had, some of the units were already remodeled, and throwing that stuff in a landfill really didn't resonate with building a greener Colorado. So we're going to do whatever we can from a green perspective, from an energy efficiency perspective, whether that's low flow plumbing fixtures, Energy Star light fixtures and appliances, adding some insulations to the walls, putting a reflective coating on the roof. There's things we can do, but we can't get it to a LEED Gold certification. Our energy consultant told us the best we could do, or the only way we could do that, would be we'd have to tear the thing back to the studs, rip off all the drywall, get rid of lots and lots of stuff that had plenty of life in it. So there's situations like that we didn't even really think about when we drew the line in the sand and said we're going to do everything to a LEED Gold certification or higher. Thankfully, our mission is building a greener Colorado, not remodeling a greener Colorado. But that is, it's tricky. It's one of those things that we didn't know what to do with. And somebody asked me the question in Jacksonville, well, why don't you just pass on it? Then what happens? And I said, well, that's not the right answer, because if we pass on it, the next person that comes in doesn't care about anything. So that thing's not going to get Energy Star light fixtures and appliances and low flow plumbing fixtures. We should stay with it because we can do better than what somebody else that's only about the bottom line is going to do.
You're going to have more hard decisions in your future.
We're up for that. We've got a lot of smart people in our company that we make decisions collaboratively, and it's not to say that we won't make a mistake somewhere along the way. And if we do, we'll own it.
Nope, that's the truth. I think the thing that I always come back to, and I give credit to Matt Foxall, who's an incredible values-driven leader. When values are clear, decisions are easy. And so, building a greener Colorado, and you look and say, well, this is a unique situation because we're not building from the ground up, but the impact that we're making, we can do the best that we can given where we're at. So, Nathan, you're 16 years into Red Tea. What's the hardest part of running your company right now?
Oh gosh, the hardest part of running my company, the easy answer, there's not enough hours in the day. But that's kind of a lame answer, so I'll give you another one. When it was 10 people, 15 people, maybe even 20 or 25 people, it was really easy for me to have a lot more control and influence over what was happening. And now I have to really step aside and rely on others. Which means there's, meetings that I used to be a part of, decisions that I used to be a part of, that other people are empowered to run those meetings, make those decisions. And as much as that sounds really simple on the surface, it's not. Relinquishing that control and that level of influence to other people is something that takes a lot of work. For me, it's taken a lot of work. It has not been easy for me to do.
It is typical of the high achiever trap, right? No one can do it better than us. And so we think we have to do all the doing. And the reality of it is, if you don't do that, then you become the bottleneck in your own business. Whether you're running a department, whether you're running a company, it doesn't matter. If you try and sustain that control here, you're never going to grow beyond your capabilities to help people perform, and the company's, be stunted in its growth. You're going to be stunted in your growth too.
True.
That's the truth. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat, because we're reaching the hour mark. I want to be respectful of time. So Nathan, I'll close out with this one, unless, people have questions, but how will you know if you've succeeded in building a greener Colorado?
We will know that we've succeeded. There's a saying, and I'm probably going to screw it up because I definitely wasn't prepared for this.
Yes, I got him.
When somebody, I'm already screwing it up. When somebody copies you, it's like the best form of flattery, or I forget what the saying is, but that's what we're angling for. It's not about us, and it's not about us being the only ones that are doing this. We want to change the industry, first locally, but then nationally. We will know that we have been successful when we start to see other projects being built sustainably, being built to a LEED Gold certification. Every Saturday morning when I wake up, I check the inventory, I keep a log of the inventory, and I started at the first of the year checking to see how many homes were listed that had a LEED certification. I checked Denver County, and then I checked the 11 county metro area. And the only homes that I have seen so far, and granted, we're only like 2 months and 10 days in, have been what we've listed. I've not seen it from any, and I'm looking new construction here. There have been some homes that have been listed that were built LEED certified 5, 10, 12 years ago, but we're not seeing it in new construction right now. It's very, very rare. And we'll know that we've been successful when we start to see it on a regular basis. Every Saturday when I wake up, I should see a handful in there. And then 4 years from now, I should see 25 or 30 in there. And that number will continue to grow. And then I'll know that we've been successful.
I think the quote may be that imitation is the highest form of flattery.
I realized it after I was done speaking. Yep, that's it.
Got it. Fantastic.
Hey, Jerry, this is
Yeah.
Michael. Hey,
Michael.
I really enjoyed Nathan's insight, and I really enjoyed this hour. So I was going to send the $100 back to you, if that's okay. But instead of doing that twofold here, next week's going to cost you $500. So just send me four C notes, and we'll be square for next Friday.
Fair
and
enough.
Then to help Nathan get to that jumping higher goal, I'm going to send him, if you'll filter, Nathan, if you don't mind filtering your ship to address, I want to send him some of our KRT heat. It's a muscle endurance cream. If you'll I'll send it to you gratis, and if it gets to your goal, I'd like to have some feedback from you. How's that?
Amen.
Absolutely, Michael. I'm old. I'm 45, and playing volleyball with guys in their 20s and 30s. I need every bit of help I can get. So I'll take you up on that offer.
Absolutely. And when you get them, if you don't mind, I'll put my card in there. Give me a holler, and I'll explain the science behind it. And so it's an all natural, FDA cleared, and actually it's considered a vegan product. So I'll be happy to do that for you.
Carol Ann,
Yes.
Carol Ann, you should be very proud. Michael never misses an opportunity to sell.
Never. I love it.
By the way, Michael, I got a couple other pro athletes too that I can get you that, and you can just send it to Nathan. Nathan can give it to the guys.
I'll be happy to do so. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I really enjoyed this hour.
I love it.
Jerry, happy to join you again this week. So as your biggest fan. Okay. So,
Amen.
I mean,
Amen.
I'm here every week showing up. So.
And thank you for doing that. I appreciate you so much. It's nice to have big fans for sure. Anyone have any questions for Nathan? You guys can just come off mute if you have any questions. What did you think? I like calling on people. AJ, what did you think?
I thought it was very informative. Although, it was on construction, it kind of, hits home into what we do as well. So it was very good to listen on his perspective of things.
What I found is leading cuts across every type of industry. That's why I've been able to run 5 different businesses in 5 different industries, because leading people is the same no matter what it is that you're doing. And so that's really what the focus is for sure. Let me just close this off. I mean, we are always better together. To Carol Ann's point, come together, share, treasure collaboration over conflict. And so, that's why we're doing this. I'm personally on a mission to positively impact 5 million people through better business. I want to do it in the next 5 years. And so I'm giving myself some grace in that impact. But it doesn't make any sense to me that people show up to do their work and not love and be in a really compelling environment where they can do their best work. And so last week, I broke down the business acceleration model, which I've used to accelerate all the businesses that I've run. This week, we had Nathan talking about, his case study of how building a greener Colorado has inspired his people and his company and helping it to accelerate forward. Next week, I'm going to break down the 9 principles of personal performance, which is really the foundational element of what the individual can do to build a vision-based, values-based life, your life on your terms, so that we can drive organizations forward faster and make sure that you are feeling so good about that, right? Because it's your vision, your values, and your actions. When you put those things in alignment, you unlock fulfillment, and that is the highest purpose of life. Your life on your terms, no apologies. So Nate talked about this, but every Thursday from 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern time, we do office hours. It's a time for senior leaders to come together and solve hard problems. We've got a great community that's building there. I'd invite any of you to come and join us. And then, the last piece that I would give you is if you head over to provenchaos.com, sign up for the newsletter that we send out every Saturday at 8 a.m. It goes great with coffee. I found that high achievers, it's about the only time that they have to sit down and sip coffee and actually have some thinking time. So that's when I chose that time. But sign up. It's for, how do we elevate our mindset? How do we lead companies better? How do we own our life? Again, your life, your terms, bring everything with conscious intention. So Nathan, thank you so much for joining us this week. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. It was great to see you. And next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 3:30 Thursday. See you guys.